Get ready. Go.
Oh, wow.
What up, plays, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to Flat Out Elected. Man, what's going on, everybody? April 25th, 2017. Flat Earth, no curve, no ball. Welcome to the Hangout, everybody. Special guest, Arcane Logos, Rand Campbell. And we got Kevin in the Hangout right now and another gentleman named Rio. This is MG42 Pillbox. And we are going to discuss some things. The fact that we are in a flat stationary plane of existence and the Bible is true has now come to truth in 2017 like never before. This is the biggest awakening in 2,000 years, and you can either be part of it or you can stay on the sidelines. It's all good to me. Arcane Logos, what's going on, brother?
Yo, was cracking.
Hey, sounded good, bro.
Word. Peace and love to all y'all, man. Good to see y'all back in action. What's going on?
Man, chilling, bro. I was watching You've Been Exposed earlier. I like that Rand gets on there early, so I have something to watch when I get up in the morning. But man, just the flat earth as a whole is just insanity. You're talking about 5,000 viewers a day, 7 to 10 hangouts every single day. Type in flat earth on YouTube and only put for today, last 24 hours. I guarantee you more than 150 videos are going to come up every 24 hours. I mean, you got these guys coming in the hangouts like, oh, this is so stupid. This is dead. I mean, if you're calling flat earth dead, that means you're dead.
I just love listening to you, Phil. You have no idea how many times you get me to chuckle in a day. Even when you're I love, and one of my favorite things about you is when you correct somebody and then ask them to go get their evidence, and then you go, take your time.
You got to give them the time.
I love it. What's going on, gentlemen? Arcane, how are you, sir? And how are you, Rio? Kevin here. You're aware of Kevin, right, Arcane?
There's like 12 Kevins floating around here. Which one is he?
I've had a conversation with you maybe once or twice in an off-air hangout and stuff. And I've been watching a lot of what you've said over the years and stuff. And there's a couple things that you've said that I wanted to ask you about because I think you and I are essentially on the same, without using the pun, plane of existence. Like you mentioned a couple different books and stuff that I'm not sure if you've read or you know the authors very well, but I think you and I would probably have a lot to discuss on them. So
Yeah, that's what's up, man. Which one are you talking about?
well, one of the recent ones that you brought up was he's written a couple different books, Christopher Dunn. And you were having a discussion with someone with regards to the forget what it was, one of the statues at I think it was the Giza Plateau or something. How it was
Luxor, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. How the face was perfectly symmetrical. And it was interesting you brought that up because I had read his initial book a couple of months ago, and I was just sitting there listening to what you had to say, and you're right on the money, man. It's just to me, it's kind of disgusting because people don't do their homework. They don't look into it. He's already written at least 2 books that I'm aware of out there, and he's a professional engineer, and he makes some excellent points as to why you simply can't take the copper tools that were in common usage back then, and you cannot replicate what we essentially see on that headstone. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, don't take a genius though, right? Like
No, the book was a little bit difficult to read because it's I don't know if you've read it, but he's a professional engineer and he goes into a lot of math, and I'm not a big math person, so
Yeah, he does. But I just mean in the simplest way that, they tell you that they had copper chisels and stone mallets that are cutting through granite and making it perfectly symmetrical by hand.
yeah.
That's ludicrous. It doesn't take 12 years of school to figure that out.
Yes.
Some of the stones that they cut in these ways today, we use
Hmm.
diamond tip drills to cut and make them, and we can't even make them that accurate today by hand. We
Yeah.
need assistance. So I mean, it's just The evidence is there. People have written numerous books. I know Chris Dunn has written, like you said, at least two. I think he's been on numerous shows discussing these, done numerous documentaries and that kind of thing. I mean, in real time, it's not like they're just showing you pictures. They've actually gone to the sites and done the measurements and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I got into it because I was fooled by the ancient aliens. I actually thought it was little green men or whatever
Mhm.
that came to Earth and gave humans maybe the technology or assisted humans in making it because we can't do it today, right? So
Yeah.
I was fooled by that, so I kept digging, digging, and eventually it led me to the scriptures, which makes more sense of it now that it's possibly just humans before the flood and they had way more knowledge than we got now. At least that's my take on it now. But yeah, man, I would say when I first started looking into it, everybody thought I was nuts. I couldn't find but maybe two people to say, yeah, that's interesting. That's pretty cool. That makes sense. Right now, it's like more and more people like you were like, hey, Arcane, that makes sense. So
Yeah.
that's what's up, man.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Arcana. I'm not sure if I agree with your conclusion that you've presented, but um, to touch on one of the points you made, it's interesting because if you actually take the time to read the book, and not just do a 10-minute freaking Google search or anything like that, but if you take the time to read the book, he actually does do the test. He takes the tools that they had back then and he tries to replicate, trying to carve on the granite, and it doesn't work. You can't do it.
Right.
So
Yeah, man.
anyway,
What fascinated me was the precision in which they did
yes.
the stuff, not only on the sculptures, but on some of the buildings. It's remarkable. It's almost magical, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I have a little bit of an engineering background, so and how to build things. I just had a natural knack for it since I was a kid, and just common sense will tell you, man, that with the tools that they had, it's impossible, dude. But
Mhm.
okay, if you hold a belief system that demands that, right? That demands that, well, that's all that they must have had. So that's what they must have used, that sort of
Yeah.
circular reasoning. Then you're stuck. You really have to try to rationalize it in some way. Well, they weren't complete idiots, but you know, they couldn't have been smarter than us. There's no way we can accept that. But
Yeah.
I happen to think that they were smarter. I mean, they lived hundreds of years according to the scriptures and ancient texts. So that's just my view.
Um, are you familiar with Robert Schoch as well?
Sounds familiar. I suck with names though.
He's the guy back in the early 1990s that looked at the Sphinx and shown that the weather-worn pattern on the
Oh,
Sphinx was, yeah. He actually took his information to at least one formal debate that I'm aware of and cleaned the other guy's clock. So he's a really, really good source of information on the idea that, the typical idea that there wasn't any sort of civilization before, 3 or 4,000 BC. But that and other information actually drags it back at least another couple thousand years. So that to me is actually really fascinating as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of different worldviews out there, man. So there's a lot of different perspectives based on those worldviews about what the evidence actually means. But there's no written account at the Sphinx who says who built it and when. There's no written account
Yep.
at the Great Pyramid who says who built it and when. For all we know, that civilization was wiped out, and the people that we call pharaohs today, the dynastic Egyptians, just happened to stumble upon the land after the Tower of Babel.
True.
So there's a lot of speculation involved, but the facts are clear. Um, they must have had some advanced knowledge at least. Now,
Yeah.
what kind of technology they had, who knows? Perhaps it's something lost to us, but just that fact alone that we've lost that amount of knowledge should throw a monkey wrench in the secular evolutionism sort of paradigm. You know what I mean? It kind of just points to the ancient texts as being true.
I I just think that a lot of that information. By the way, you're echoing a little bit. Not sure if you have your headphones on, but I mean, if you're probably familiar with like Göbekli Tepe as well. That's a huge problem for the traditional view. Uh, how do you explain essentially hunter-gatherer tribes being able to haul, several tons, probably maybe even dozens of tons of rocks into that organized pattern and be able to put an astronomical symbol there? What was it? Something like 10,000 years ago. I mean, that's a huge problem as well. But one of the books that you talked about that when you mentioned it, I'd never heard of it, and I have yet to read it, but I wanted to get your take on it. Was Michael Cremo's book on forbidden archaeology. Did you actually read it, or do you know anything about it?
I did a long time ago, and I watched the series that he made uh, associated with it. There's tons of stuff that seminars that he's done too associated with that book.
Yeah.
It's quite fascinating. He holds a different worldview than a biblical one, but
Mhm.
just his skepticism on just the whole paradigm. You know what I mean? He's talking
Yeah.
about how the fossils, when you actually look at them, they don't add up to what this paradigm is suggesting. That it's actually turned upside down, and there's so much that they've covered up and that we haven't seen. Just gives a whole different side, man. So yeah, Michael Cremo, he's done some dope stuff.
Cool.
Forbidden archaeology, yeah, that was a grip ago.
It's a thick book. It's almost 1,000 pages. They actually had to make another book that cut it down to like 400 or 500 pages because it was too detailed.
Yeah, I actually started looking at it when I got my first laptop when I was in the army back in 2006.
Hmm.
And people didn't know what the heck he was talking about. I certainly didn't either back then until later I started looking at more stuff, and yeah, it all came together. But yeah, he holds a different view than I do about history, but his skepticism is definitely should be respected. You know what I mean? If you're a true
Yeah.
skeptic, you should respect his work. Just like people like Klaus Dana in his work.
Haven't heard that name yet.
Klaus Dana, he's the
No.
guy. He has such a thick accent, you can barely understand what the hell he's saying. But if you look him up on YouTube, he's got some pretty interesting stuff, like these statues. Well, first of all, he's the guy that I first heard about the genetic disc from. Did you ever hear about the genetic disc?
No. Mm-mm.
It's this stone made out of rudite, supposedly one of the hardest stones in existence, right? Like harder than granite.
Mhm.
And on this little itty bitty stone, first of all, they don't know how it could have been cut so perfectly without, like something like diamonds, right? First of all. Second of all, on
Mhm.
it, it's got all of the different stages of the embryonic development of the human embryo on
Oh,
one
wow.
on one side of it, like stuff you can only see with a microscope. Right? On one side of it, and the other side of it, it's got like the male and female representation of like the sexual organs and like just this weird depiction of human anatomy. But nonetheless, they needed a freaking microscope to see like all of the cellular development of those stages to put it on the disc, for one, and for two, it's a hard stone. Like the stone is so hard, you needed something of mechanical. You need something to cut it with. Like it's bottom line.
Yeah.
And there's all of these different artifacts that he's presenting that are similar like that. Like he found this little miniature artifact, right? And it looked like the heads in Easter Island. You know those big
Hmm.
dumb looking statues in Easter
Yeah.
Island?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, this statue that he found was like a miniature version, but it was found in Colombia, right? So like he's
Wow.
just drawing the connections of how all of this evidence pretty much points to a pre uh historic civilization of human beings that uh all communicated across,
Yeah,
across the world.
I think you and I are on the same page on that as well. By the way, how do you spell this guy's name? I'm writing it down.
KLAUSDONA, I want to say Donna or DONA, Donna. One of the two. You'll see it.
Got it. Okay. Um, yeah, I think I'm along the same lines as you. I've read a couple books on by Schock, Hancock, Robert Duvall, and they all pretty much come to the same agreement that there was a kind of a greater civilization that communicated back and forth, and that's why you see a lot of the similarities. But for some reason, when it comes to tradition archaeology, they just kind of toss this aside, and I think that's a huge mistake.
Well, they have to, in order to protect, excuse me, protect the academically established paradigm of evolutionism. It doesn't fit, so they have to sort of nudge it aside and hope that no one takes too much of a notice to it and kind of brand anyone that speaks about it as crackpots or conspiracy theorists or alien believers. But I think that's the next push, though. I think with the surgence of this flat Earth, they're going to start pushing more and more this alien agenda, and more of those ancient aliens fanboys are going to, take ship. So they don't really have an option, in my opinion. They don't got nowhere to go. But it's either scripture or aliens. Take your pick. You know what I mean? I don't know. What's your view on it? What do you think?
Well, I mean, by the way, you're echoing.
Oh, I got headphones in. I don't know why. Hold on.
Got to put them on. I'm an atheist. I mean, I'm not sure if I agree with the conclusions that you're drawing. I wanted to have a conversation with you because I think we've been reading a lot of the same information. So I just wanted to toss information back and forth. I tried to get a hold of you on G+, but for some reason you didn't pop up. So I was bugging Ran. I'm like, get in touch with Arcane. I'd like to have a conversation with them. So, because I mean, a lot of the photographs you showed and everything, it's been. I mean, we may not be on the same page when it comes to conclusions, but I think there's a lot of information we could share back and forth that would be beneficial to both of us. So that's where I stand.
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people haven't seen this type of information too. When you bring it up to the average people on here, they don't look in that realm, I guess, of history or archaeology or forbidden history, as Michael Cremo would say. But yeah, man, that's dope. But I'm always curious to hear how people of the atheistic side, or people who don't necessarily believe the Bible, sort of reconcile these things, because we've all been taught sort of the same narrative, right? That people migrated out of Africa, and then civilizations got better and better. So how does that kind of fit? Unless there is like some people, I've heard of this alternative history that maybe humans advanced to a certain point and then got wiped out, and there's like these cycles of history. I've heard that before, but I'm always interested to hear how people explain the evidence.
Honest Arcane, I don't think I've come to the point where I can draw any sort of definitive conclusion. I'm still very much accumulating information. Now, the last thing that you said, if I was forced to make kind of a concession or draw a conclusion, would seem to be a pretty good one, is that there was an advanced civilization, say around 10 or 12,000 years ago, that ended due to a catastrophic event. This is something that Randall Carlson talks a lot about. He's somebody that's talks a lot with Graham Hancock, and he proposes the idea that there was a massive flood over the North American continent approximately 12,000 years ago, and that essentially probably wiped out whatever was there. And so we've lost all that knowledge. So that's where I would go from now, but I'm completely open to any ideas that other people have. I follow where the evidence leads, my friend.
Word, word. Yeah, I've heard a lot of, man, I've been to and from probably every theory you can think of to try
Yeah.
to make sense of, because, I came across this information before I became a believer in Christ or in the Bible. So, yeah, man,
Mhm.
I'm just afraid of the new age sort of movement, man. I just think that a lot of people are being deceived by it.
Mhm.
It's one thing to be skeptical and question things, but this new age sort of alien agenda really freaks me out, man, because
Oh
I
yeah.
see a lot of people being attached to it. But I can honestly say that from that perspective, that's honestly like the only next best place to go, right? Just kind of like when I saw Sam Harris talking about the simulation theory, and he was
Okay.
sort of giving credence to it, like, well, maybe an alien race in the future was so, or however, from whenever, was so advanced that they created a simulation of the reality that just they can play over and over.
Mhm.
And they were really giving this sort of thought, this idea, credibility. They're like, hey, well, the simulation theory seems to make sense.
Mhm.
So I get kind of scared, man, as a Bible believer now, because I can see where it's headed. So I always like to pick people's brains and see, what their thoughts are on it. Because,
Well,
man,
let me ask you something for clarification, Arcane. What do you mean exactly when you say new age? What does that mean to you?
like, I guess it's not really new age from a technical perspective, but what I mean by that is like the consciousness cosmos movement, like we are the universe,
Gotcha.
yeah, the chakra, you know those guys, like the guys who believe in channeling spirit guides, and like they're stardust, and like, you know what I mean, like they take it to like
Yeah.
a cultic kind of like yeah, they're like, it's like a cult of believers who think that they can channel the spirits and energy, or the energy of the universe, which they call spirit. I don't know, but
Mhm.
that's kind of what I mean by new age. It kind of scares me because it's very attractive and addictive to today's sort of anime, video game, comic book sort of youth. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like very attractive. But
Gotcha.
like I said, it's at least people are having a discussion, and people aren't more, because when I first got into it, people weren't really talking about the the ins and outs of this new age stuff too much. People were just kind of either jumping on the bandwagon or passing over it. But now I see it as a demonic scheme, bro. Like it's scary.
Mhm.
And the flat Earth thing, I think that is really putting a monkey wrench in a lot of their propaganda. So I think now they're pushing back. What's
Mm.
your take on the flat Earth? Are you looking into that yet?
Everyone seems to be asking me that. Even Rand.
Hey man, it's the talk of the day.
Nah, that's cool. In fact, I was gonna say we probably should stop talking about our little tangent discussion, bore everybody in the room. But now to answer your question, I'll be as honest as I am with everybody who asks it. I don't have enough information. As I admitted to Rand, I'm one of these people that grew up with the idea of like, this is a sphere. And anytime, in fact, I hadn't even heard of flat Earth until about 5 or 6 years ago. So the short answer is I simply don't know. Don't have enough
Let me
info.
ask you this. Let's say it turned out it was flat. And there's a big old dome over us, right? How do you
Okay.
think atheists will take that? If, let's say, the scientific community said, "Yeah, we'll admit it," what do you think they'll go from there? Do you think that they will no longer be atheists? Do you think that they'll accept the rational implication.
Well, let's see if I understand your question. Are you saying that if the scientific consensus out there came to the conclusion that the Earth was flat, you're asking the people that are non-believers, would they become Christian? Is that what you're asking?
No, I'm just saying, let's say they admitted it, right? Okay, yeah,
Okay.
it's really flat, right? Scientifically accepted, what have you. All the proof you need is there. You know it's flat, whatever. How do you think atheists will accept it? Do you think that they will no longer be atheists and they'll accept the rational conclusion that this place was built like a planetarium, or what? What do you think?
It's a good question. I see a lot of people that are very, very invested in their confirmation bias.
Mm.
So, I mean, if you're essentially kind of hinting at the atheists sort of in this community, I think they'd fight it tooth and nail. They're very, very invested in their own type of world view, and they're very slow to change. If that answers your question.
Right. What do you think an atheist should do? Like, if you
Keep an open,
believe,
keep an open mind about everything.
do
Everything's
you
on the
think that
table.
that rationally points to it though? Let's say it's proven this place is a planetarium. It's a terrarium, if you will.
Okay.
Do you think that that rationally points to a creator?
It's a good question. I don't know.
What do you think would point to a creator, if not like a a realm of existence created like a planetarium?
In other words, what is it that I would see that I would just immediately go, something created this, or some powerful
Right.
being created it?
Yeah.
Oh man. I don't know, man.
Like if
I'm
you
sorry.
walked upon let's say me and you, we took a hike out to the Amazon, right?
Okay.
And we out there smoking some good jungle weed and we tripping off some ayahuasca, and we come upon uh a structure,
Yeah.
right? Never mind the fact that we're tripping balls out of our mind. Let's just say we're of sound mind enough to know what it is, right? We say,
Okay.
wow, this thing looks like a temple.
Hmm.
Wow, look at the look at the megalithic structure of this place. It must have been built by someone who knows their craft, some master
Hmm.
mason. It's kind of the same concept. Like
Yeah.
you would know who built it necessarily, but you would say, man, something built it. It didn't just pop out of the ether, right? It didn't just come out of the cosmic behind. So yeah.
Yeah. And I think essentially what you're asking is, how do you draw a line between something that's natural versus something that's created, right?
Or what would you accept as evidence that nature is itself a product of design? What criteria could you use? Because if we're using that one, right, like that's why I asked you if this place was proven to be a stationary flat realm and everything revolves around us, that seems to imply that it was made for us. I was gonna say
Yeah.
wasn't an accident. In the same way that if we came across a temple in the Amazon covered in bamboo or whatever, we'd say the same thing. This thing was made to be here. It's designed to be here for
Correct.
whatever purpose. So I think a lot of people never thought about that question because they never even thought that the earth could be flat. But now
Hmm.
that the cat's out the bag, kind of,
Hmm.
I just ask people.
No, I think these questions are good ones to have. Um, that's kind of how essentially scientific inquiry starts. Start asking questions. Um, but I'm sorry if I'm boring to you, man. I just, being as honest as I can, I don't.
No, it's all good.
Yeah, I'm not a. I guess I haven't put a lot of thought into some of these base questions, other than to say, kind of, the reason we usually do look at things and determine that they're created is simply because we've seen similar things in the past. So it's more of kind of an inductive reasoning. But
Right.
I don't know, man.
I don't know. I just looked at history and I saw a pattern, man. It's like the more I tried to stay away from the Bible, the more I found people covering up things that pointed to the Bible, things in history,
Okay.
right? Like things that imply flood, for example, or things that imply a creation. It's always sort of looked over, like you said, the evidence of some of these ancient megaliths. Like, why would they just look over it?
Yeah.
So the more I see that pattern, the more it gives me. It's kind of like you tell your teenager, don't smoke weed. It's not it's not good for you. People think it's cool, but you don't look cool. First thing they want to do is go smoke some weed now. 'Cause you know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
First thing
yeah.
they want to do. So that's was like me. I was like, well, why do people keep trying to hide this information? Why is it always pointing back to the Bible?
Hmm.
So I guess as a Bible believer, it's my duty to sort of show you this path that I took and say, hey
Oh
man,
no.
something fishy about what they're saying, and it always seems to point to covering up some sort of truth in this area. And as a detective, I mean, any analytical mind can sort of say that's where the arrow's pointing to scripture. So something to think about, something to think about.
No, in fact, I've actually thought about that. And by the way, you're still echoing really badly. I don't know if you
Oh
had
shoot.
headphones.
Yeah, I got headphones, man. I don't know what's up.
You're just
Hold on.
being lazy, right?
I got them. They plugged in. Hold on.
Um, what was I gonna say? Basically, I'm in complete agreement with you. I really don't think anything should be overlooked. Um, I don't, and this is something that I've argued with other people about. A lot of people tend to point to the ad populum fallacy, that just because a whole bunch of people uh, believe a certain thing, that doesn't necessarily make it true. And I agree with that. But what they do is they do a form of special pleading with the ad populum when it comes to scientific circles. And I completely disagree with that. I think a consensus of scientists does not necessarily mean that that is the right path to take. So I put everybody under the gun. I don't care if 99.999% of scientists say a certain thing. I want to see why they came to that. I want to do the best I can to analyze the data, because it's very possible, especially in the world that we live in, that there are interests involved that want to skew information for particular purposes. I mean, perfect example is just me looking into Egyptology and how the consensus is a certain way, but yet there's a certain amount of very, very strong evidence that points directly the opposite. But yet these people just want to stay with the way it's been for a long period of time. And I think there's reasons for it. So that's my spiel.
And it's a crazy story, man. To me, it's like the most fascinating story of all time. Like
Yeah.
the covering up of our true history and the people that might or might not be behind it.
Yeah.
It's fascinating, man. You can kind of see and connect the dots, and you don't even really have to try that hard.
I agree. I find the whole thing fascinating.
It is.
But I
And
think
what's the harm in sitting and trying to, you know, question everything? What's wrong with
yeah.
that? People make such a big deal about it.
And see, that's the problem with, I'm going to say this. I mean, I don't care if we're live, give us a crap. But this is the problem I see with a lot of these hangouts around here, is that whenever you come into a room and you have a different idea, you get jumped on. Why can't you let someone finish their thought? You know, just let them talk. They might be wrong. They might be off their freaking rocker. Who gives a shit? Just let them talk, man. Maybe they have a reason for it. And that's what I see lacking, is that anything that's outside of accepted consensus on any particular idea is frowned upon and just almost spat upon. And I hate that. It disgusts me. So that's why you never see me in rooms. I'm not interested. I want to have an open discussion. And there are other people like me that feel exactly the same way. They want to have the open discussion, but you know, they don't want to get shouted down just because they bring up an idea and people won't let them finish. So, and I know you've experienced that too, Arcane. I've seen it dozens of times.
Yeah, it depends on the room though, and who's in charge and whatever. But I like to see both sides at least get it equal time until it gets to the point where a certain point needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Or, you know, I see it quite often where people just come in to disrupt the room and be obstructionists. So at that point, they should probably be dogpiled and silenced and, you know, kick them up out of there. If all you're going to do is obstruct and you're not going to, I see that so often. And it's sad. But it just depends on who's modding the room. Like me personally, I'll give people ample time. Like I tell Pillbox all the time, he's more than quick to kick somebody up out of there. And I'm more like, come on, let's give them more time to hang themselves. I like to at least hear them hang themselves a little bit more before you just kick the chair out, you know, tighten the noose just a little bit more. But he likes to just, all right, you're out of here, which I see where he's going because a lot of people just want to take up airtime and BS. And sometimes the room ain't for that. The room is for some truth. You're not just going to come in and talk some nonsense.
Yeah.
But it just depends on what the hangout's for. Like, I just happened to come in on this hangout when y'all was going live. I didn't even know what was going on. So I don't even know what this one is, Ram. Maybe you can steer us back wherever you want us to go, man. Don't let me take over, but yeah.
I wanted. Go ahead, Rand. Sorry.
No, it's okay. I was enjoying your conversation. I know it's not very often that Arcane gets to speak to the opposition so calmly and relaxed. And it's nice to hear because I love Arcane. He is a true brother, and I like you as well, Kevin. And I like the fact that you guys can talk because I mean that's really where we're at in this community. Everybody wants to act like. I'm talking to Kevin and I were talking privately before we opened up the hang. And, this so-called debate, here's a pretty good question that I asked Kevin. Just a second. And it's something to really think about. When you let this sink in, it's kind of interesting. We're in what is supposed to be called the great debate community, right, Arcane?
That's what they say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? But there's some really great debaters out there. William Lane Craig, from the atheist community, there's a whack load of them. Well, why are they never in this community debating? It's not as though they don't know this great debate community, because I'm pretty certain they've heard great debate community on G+. So I'm willing to assert that they've at least looked at it. And why aren't they in here debating? And I would assert that the reason is because there's no real great debate going on. And anybody that is debating out of ego, not out of knowledge or desire for the other individual to come to a new understanding from their worldview. It's really just ego at this point. And the great debate ended. When would you say, honestly, Arcane, because you've been in this community a long time. I've been in it, I think, 6-7 years, something like that. But at what point do you think that the great debate kind of lost its wind? At what point do you think?
I would say when Saitem Bruggencate came through with his hammer of the precept argument, I think that is what really made it shook up the hornet's nest. But I think the death blow completely was the flat earth. Absolutely. But I think the great debate community was it was hanging on to the ropes after Saitem came through and the preceptors came through. because that's an irrefutable argument, and there's nowhere for them to run. So I would say, well, when was that? 3 years ago? 2 years ago? I lost count, but yeah. But Flat Earth was definitely the nail in the coffin.
Yeah, I would say the same. I think that, because I was in the community previous to that, before the J.D. Canes and the Steve McRae's, and back when I think Fiona was just kind of really quiet. Jade West she called herself undisclosed, and so I go back kind of way back there, and I don't even know that there was ever really any debate. There was more of a discussion, and every once in a while somebody would put together a debate forum between two people, but it was generally pretty respectful, and everybody shook hands afterwards. It was much different. You still had your trolls like Glute and Lucifer and those guys, but for the most part there was a debate. I'll say there was a debate. And when the Precept came in the beginning stage, I used to thoroughly enjoy listening to you debate and use the Precept on the JD Kane show, or different forums that they would allow you in. But I think I think you're right. I think that particular argument really angered most of the atheists. I won't say all, but most of them became very angry with that argument, because what it does, and I tried to explain it to a few people, is that the Precept isn't for the atheist. It's actually for the Christian.
Exactly.
Right? And that's where they had a problem. They wanted it to be for them. And when you use the Precept, it literally pickpockets them. Every time they go to reach into their pocket for a new weapon, the Precept has already pickpocketed them of said weapon, and you kind of have them standing in front of you with nothing. And so their answer is that the Precept destroys any kind of communication, any kind of a dialogue. And I don't think that's true. I think what it does is it shines a light on the lack of atheist dialogue. It removes the word salad, right? It removes the fallacies. It removes the arrogance. It removes the lies, because atheism has to say, I mean, not all atheists, but a lot of atheists have to say that, knowledge comes from nothing. And if that's true, then you can't even rely on your own knowledge. And I think that the Precept kind of put them in a corner they didn't like being in. I think they were used to, the Rand Campbells, the Arcanes, and the pillboxes throughout school, standing in the corner wearing the dunce cap. And so when it happened to them, I think that really was somewhat of a kick to the ego and a chin check they weren't prepared to have.
Man, I never saw, you can go back and watch and see how stupid they were regarding the entire topic. They didn't know anything about philosophy. They didn't know about the terminology. They didn't know about any of it, right? And to see them scramble to go and do their research, because it was a new topic. People were so used to talking about evolution and the moral argument and rape and slavery. They weren't used to that field of philosophy, of epistemology, dealing with knowledge, and how philosophers attack that issue, and solipsism and these kind of things. So to watch them completely flip-flop their positions, because at first they didn't know nothing about it, so all of the sound questions we would ask them, they would get caught up in it and expose themselves, and to see them try to reverse their positions. Now I don't believe that anymore. Now I believe something else. It just shows how shaky their foundation is, man. So I would say, it was new, and it caught them off guard.
Because you're a fighter too, right, Arcane? I mean, you and I are both fighters. And so we kind of understand the concept of testing a man's foundation, testing a man's center of gravity, for the lack of a better word. But, to find out, what we're up against, to find out how solid your opponent is. And I think that the Precept just exposed the lack of foundation in the atheists that we were dealing with. I am pretty certain there's some stronger atheists that might be able to withstand the precept argument, but I don't think I ever saw one. That was a pretty devastating shot. And then now to get to the flat Earth, I would agree. The flat Earth, they don't know what to do with it. The only thing they are left to do with that now is to say that we're all crazy. That's the best that they can do. I have yet to see any of these powerhouse atheists in this community come in and have a reasonable discussion in respects to flat Earth and bring any kind of evidence that would, have a flat earther change their mind. Have you seen it, like Steve McRae or J.D. Kane or?
That's the key, isn't it, though, Rand? I mean, I may disagree and think that the Earth is a sphere, but that's an excellent question to ask. When was the last time there was actually a really respectful back and forth between, the two viewpoints? And I can't remember a single one. It's always just insult after insult after insult, and it just gets boring. So.
Yeah, it's. I mean, really, you might as well just call this community Talking Stupidity Tuesdays, because really, it's come down to the J.D. Kane format on their side. Don't get me wrong. Our side, the Flat Earth side, has separated itself from. That's why we didn't go to New York and meet the J.D. Kane Talking Stupidity Tuesdays with G-Man, and we didn't get in on that invite, because we truly. Don't have an interest in anything but delivering this truth. And I'm not looking to make friends here. Jesus Christ said, no, they hated me first. They're going to hate you. So, with this truth that we're trying to deliver, I'm not looking to make buddies. And then, don't get me wrong. I don't mind making friends. Like, I consider you a decent enough guy, Kev. You and I already talked about it. I would meet you for a coffee here in the Dominican, or go for dinner, or have you over to my house for a barbecue. I don't see you as a person that I would, have a hard time being in the company of. But for the most part, I don't. It's beyond me that you could have a desire to go and meet people that have done nothing but mock, insult, drag your name through the mud, treat you like absolute garbage, and forget that they did that to you. They've done it to every single friend you have in the community, and forget that they've done it to every single friend you have in the community. They've done it to your Lord and Savior, of whom you're supposed to be a representation of. And for me, I'm kind of glad that Flat Earth, for me, Arcane, what the greatest thing Flat Earth has done? It has removed the garbage. It has put the garbage to the curb. I don't have any of them coming to my channel and bothering me. I don't have any of them in my life. None of them.
Then it's a good thing.
Yeah, they're not going to name Talking Stupidity Tuesday after Rand Campbell or Arcane, because they know that we're going to bring up some topics that they're not comfortable with. So they're going to continue to talk about G-Man and Ronnie and whoever else. They ain't going to bring up Flat Earth.
No, and I don't know why I would want to meet. Don't get me wrong. I don't got anything against them. I don't want to meet Madonna. I don't want to meet Beyonce. I don't want to meet Lady Gaga. There are certain people in this world I just have no interest in meeting. I don't need to meet you. And I certainly don't want to meet people that have spent week after week after week after week on a live, that have videos of me on their channel mocking and insulting me and treating me like absolute garbage. I don't know why I would have an interest. And to say, oh, well, Jesus Christ sat with sinners, and Jesus Christ, we're supposed to love our enemy. Well, Jesus Christ, there's nowhere in the Bible where Jesus Christ sat with those that mocked the disciples. He sat with sinners because he had no choice. He never sinned. So, of course, every single human person that he's going to sit with is a sinner. Of course, he sat with sinners, but he did not laugh and joke and mock those that were mocking his disciples. At any rate, I don't want to make that the discussion. The room just got a little bit prettier. I mean, it was already pretty with Pillbox in here, but it got just a little prettier. Teal is here, our very dear and wonderful friend. How are you doing, Teal?
I'm good. Can y'all hear me?
Of course. You see, we got your friend here, Kevin.
Yep. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
You know, I wanted to say one thing about what you said there, Rand. You know, getting along with people, and this may come as a surprise to certain people, but I remember when I started in this community about 4 years ago. Early on, kind of warned me about Arcane. You couldn't have a conversation with him. That he was just too antagonistic, and he was just too stubborn, and he just wasn't open to like having any sort of discussion. But I don't know, man. I interactions with you, Arcane, and I can I think I can kind of understand where you're coming from. Is that if people came at me the same way people come at you, you know, very attacking and arrogant, and just not allowing you to talk, of course it's kind of like, you know, backing a dog into a corner. It's going to bite you. And I really think that even though you and I don't necessarily have the same conclusions that we draw, I think we can have some really good conversations. And it's a shame that so many people are so invested in being right with everything that they can't have a conversation with someone that they necessarily disagree with. What do you think?
Yeah, man. I think I ain't no better than anybody else too. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm guilty of the same thing, but I think my intentions coming on here were honest and pure. Like I don't think you can ever find a single interaction to me where you can say, well, he's trying to be deceptive or he's trying to be dishonest or he's misleading. Because each conversation or interaction I have, I start off with the same intention. I really just want to hear people's interaction, hear people's opinions and interact with them. I don't have some ulterior motive to like, aha, you're wrong. Now let me make fun of you because you might have slipped up and got something wrong or said the wrong thing or you believe something. You know what I'm saying? Like that's petty to me. It's always been like that.
Yep.
So you can kind of tell, like, if you watch me long enough, like, if you only watch TST Talking Stupidity Tuesday, man, G Man and True Empiricism are the worst dudes on the earth. Like they're the worst scum of the earth if you only watch that garbage. But if you watch them for who they are, you just see that they're just regular dudes trying to sound smart like everybody else. You know what I'm saying? Like there's no need to be so personal and attacking. Like just give people equal time. And I have some issues with Christians in this regard. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
they're just on here to sound smart or like I don't know, man. It's just pathetic. Like people should be able to talk without ego. I guess I'm just old school, man. Like people don't do that no more.
Oh, like Matt Slick, yeah.
Yeah, man. Like
Talk about a waste of time. I mean, that was 3 years ago. I see this guy, I'm like, oh, so the Christian community's garbage. I got to save these people. When I saw Matt Slick, dear Lord.
yeah, him Bible thumping wingnut, man. When the flat Earth came through, man, it definitely brought a division. That's for sure. And it's sad. It's bittersweet because, like you said, it reveals who's really humble with
Yeah,
this
just look at the chat.
information and who's using this information to sound or for their own prideful interests instead of using it to wake people up. If they were truly trying to wake people up, they wouldn't be as divisive as they are and trying to make us look like fools. They'd be trying to wake people up like we are. All they're doing is keeping up with the same narrative that the slaves are. Pathetic.
I think if you're honest, Arcane, like going back to the example I gave, I think if you think back to some of the interactions you had with, you know, believers and non-believers, when they pushed you into a corner and when they were just over the top insulting you, sometimes we can't help but essentially kind of be the same way back to them. And I saw you do that a couple times, and I don't fault you for it at all. I believe that you probably went in thinking that you could have a good conversation, probably not expecting that type of treatment. See where I'm coming from?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, shoot, I'm no better than anybody else. You put anybody else in that situation, they're gonna react too. But
Yeah,
it's
but
never
when you
my
had
intention to insult or put nobody down. That's the thing. Like I can always, even if
Yeah.
if you watch a lot of my interactions, even the last one on Steve McRae's channel, me and Steve McRae went blow for blow for about an hour, and so did some of the other panel members. But by the end of it, we were like, "All right, man, that was a good talk. We'll hook up next time." You know what I'm saying? No hard feelings.
Really?
But even
You know what I
I
mean?
remember a conversation, Arcane, that you had with who's the philosopher guy that sits in his chair and
Ozymandias?
yeah, Ozzy. You had a really good talk with Ozzy. I've also seen you have pretty good discussions with Shanna, and they were respectful and good conversations. So I think it comes down to who you're talking to. There are people in this community that are out and out, like what's his name, Alex Botten kept bugging me and bugging me and bugging me and bugging me to come talk to him, and I was like, I don't really want to talk to you, blah 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 blah, and so he started doing videos saying Rand Campbell's a punk. He's afraid to speak to me, blah 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 blah, da 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 da, and he's a punk. Then he said, Rand, if you don't come to my hangout tonight and talk to me, you admit to being a punk, and your mother about her dying or killing my father. I forget what it was anyways. But I thought, all right, this guy, all right, let me just go talk to him. So as soon as I get on the hangout, right, I was in my truck and I get on the hangout, I go, hey Alex, how are you? He goes, ha 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 ha, you're my bitch. See, I made you come on this hangout because you're a bitch. And I was still cordial. I was still like, all right, Alex. So, anyways, what would you like to talk about? And all he wanted to talk about the whole hangout was insulting me and mocking me and making fun of me. And that was basically his entire intent. And so there are those people that's basically what they're looking to do. And I think a lot of times it's our fault for giving it to them. I probably would have behooved me to just not go and accept that if I don't go, well, then I'm afraid of him. That probably would have been the best thing.
Well, you saw what the precept argument did to him, right?
Oh yeah.
Guy went nuts. He ended up going to the hospital, got put on antidepressants, started vaping nicotine, cut his hair. He went through a crisis after Side 10 got through with him, man. So I just prayed for him after that last interaction I had with him, because you could see how desperate he was to try to trap a Christian. I don't know, man. I just pray for the guy, but I hope he's doing well. I haven't seen him much since then. But you know who else I haven't seen since the flat earth came through? Nephilim Free. I think we were talking about this yesterday. Have you seen him post anything?
No, I haven't seen him for a few months, man.
No, and him and I don't talk anyways. He booted me from one of his hangouts once because I was adamant that hell exists and he's against hell. But I put up a meme or something about arrogant Christians. I forget what it was. And it was basically in reference to a lot of arrogant Christians. And out of the blue, he commented and said, "Is this meant for me?" And I was like, I guess. You commented. So. But yeah, I think Flat Earth really has people rattled. Well, I guess one of the biggest punches to the face would be that Eve Real, of all people, Teal, would come to this conclusion. I mean,
Biggest shocker in internet history, Rand, to be honest with you.
yeah, what a chin check for these people. Oh, look at that. Look who's here. Hey, look at my brother. Look at my brother. Hey, Ed Arcane, this is Ed.
How y'all doing, gentlemen?
Yeah.
Ed is
man,
a beautiful human being. He's not a ball earther, but he's not a flat earther yet. But he still holds on to that ball. Show him the ball, Ed. Where's the ball, man? Show him. This is funny. He's still got it.
It's always close.
He still holds on to it.
But
And it's spinning.
I was we was getting sniped out of the other Sanchez's, and I pressed the wrong one. But I was trying to explain to somebody how a rocket works in space. After I deal with that, I promise I will come right back before I go to work.
Hey, Ed, can you stay for 1 second? He's out. Never mind. The separation, though, Rand was talking about the separate. That's exactly what it is. I mean, look at this Island Online News guy. This guy's supposedly one of the
was just gonna
Christians for
say
such
that.
a long time, bro. This guy, supposedly was talking a big game for a long time, and then Flat Earth hits, and he's telling people that he feels the Earth move, and he looks up in the sky and sees the Earth move, and he says he had a dream that the Earth was a ball, and I've never heard. He said, you know what, lemons round. He actually said this today in the chat. If you look up Arcane, he says, hey, lemons are globes. I thought, wow, could you imagine thinking that? Wow, it's amazing.
Lemons, bro. Really?
I wish I was making this up, Arcane. I don't make anything up. I'm not a habitual liar, and people don't believe half the things I'm saying. But I swear to God, look in the chat. Lemons are round. I'm not kidding.
Well, it's already been a pear, so why not go full lemon, bro? Why not?
It's a fruit of some sort. It's a fruity thing. It's weird.
When life gives you lemons.
Stay on the sidelines.
Yeah, it's amazing, bro. Like, what's up with Island Online? Is he in the chat?
Yeah, he's out there handing out lemonade.
Oh man. Hey, come on in, Island Online. Give it another shot. Was he 0 for tuna?
Oh man, he's over 100. He's been saying this stuff for months, 8
Yeah,
months in a row now, and he doesn't know anything.
You want him in?
Oh yeah, you can come in. That's fine.
Island, you want in? You want another shot?
Yeah, we want to attack him. Let's just, let him hang himself.
All right, Island, you want to come in and bring us all back to the ball? You're here to rescue us.
Put the lemonade down.
Island, look at bro. You rescue people that are screaming for help, bro. We're not screaming for help. You want to come in? Nah, that's okay. You guys talk over me too much last time. It's okay. So that's why you don't want to come in. That's your excuse because we talk over you? Are you sure, Island? Yeah, that's your final answer? That seems pretty silly. I would think that the reason why you wouldn't want to come in is because you can't win. And so, people that can't win don't get in the ring. You sure you don't want to come in the ring? Who do you want to talk to in this ring? You can pick
Eve Real's here.
So you can talk to Eve Real. You could talk to Teal. Do you want to talk to Teal? Teal won't talk over you. She's extremely polite.
Just for his benefit, Rantel, I'll be quiet. I'll just stay on the sidelines and I'll take his lemonade basket for him.
We'll all mute and you can talk to Teal. Would that be fair? Island. I can't have operating me while I'm muted. Okay. All right. That's fine. If you guys want to give him the link, give him the link.
Yeah, somebody do that.
Yeah, it's all good, man. We ain't trying to, pile on the man. We just really want to see. I mean, because it's the more we let them talk, the more that the people can see who really has the evidence and who really has all talk. So that's why I don't mind letting them talk for as long as they want to. Because when I came into it, when I start watching these debates, that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for substance. So I don't want anybody to watch this and just jump on the bandwagon because we're cool or we got swagger or whatever, right? I want people to watch this and say they had something to say and their opposition didn't have much of by way of substance. Those are the people I want as flat earthers. I don't want no bandwagon. Oh, it's trendy flat earthers. So it is what it is, just like Bible believers. You wouldn't go up to somebody and give them some sort of generic version of the gospel and hope and appeal to their, like these prosperity preachers. You wouldn't try to get nobody to the gospel like that. Same thing here. I mean, so feel free, Island Online. Just please bring something of substance, bro. If you're going to bring your dreams and imaginations, you can keep that You can keep that over there with your ball, bro.
Well, you know what it is? Let me explain this real quick, Arcane. When Rand and Rose came to me, I knew immediately. It wasn't a day or two. It was like within 30 minutes, I had realized that all the things that I was arguing to help people understand God's creation were garbage compared to this, and that all the other things I had been studying for over a decade were literally nothing compared to this topic. And some of them I could mix with it with my geology studies and things like that were relevant. But years and years of studying biology, evolution, timelines, Bible, stuff like that, as far as in a heliocentric or secular viewpoint, you come up with all this information. Then right away, as soon as you come to flat Earth, I knew right away it was all for nothing, and I was going to have to replace it all with this information about God's specific plane of existence that he created, because all this other stuff is garbage. And I think once that hits one of these Christians, they're too scared to realize that all the evolution stuff that they studied is now worthless. And I think that's one of the biggest problems with these Christians, that all their studies that they've used, the true empiricism, these people that put all this effort into evolution, which has never really, I've never seen one person helped with it online in 5 years, ever. And I've crushed 1,000 people in evolution. And I've never seen one of them turn back and say, thanks, Pillbox, now I'm a Christian. The fact of the matter is, everything that they're good at is worthless, Arcane. And that's why they can't come to flat Earth, because they have nothing.
Well, like you said a million times, bro, it's not about the evidence. It's not about the evidence, bro.
It's never.
And like Sai 10 would always say, like, some of these evidential arguments are sort of, anti-biblical, because you're giving them, it's like they take pride in their knowledge, right? And their ability to reason or whatever. So these Christians that come to the truth of the scripture by their own reason, saying, well, I was smart enough to figure it out that Christianity is the most rational because I'm rational and I can understand rational things and I can philosophize. That sort of prideful arrogance is what prevents these so-called Christians from becoming flat earthers, because they weren't in it for the truth. They were in it for some sort of intellectual status, or some sort of self-fulfillment of being smart. You know what I'm saying? Had nothing to do with the evidence whatsoever.
Right, like Eve Real, I told her how many 10,000 times did I tell Eve evolution is garbage? Let me show you evidence. People aren't interested. It just doesn't matter if you're. It's just nothing. It's nothing compared to the flat. Okay. Let me restate my claim, Teal. I had argued with you many times about evolution, and you fought me tooth and nail back every time.
Yes,
my point is, Eve, let me say this: you've never seen me change anybody to Christ, have you? With evolution?
No, and you have to get it correct here, because even as an atheist, and I have to stress this because this is just the fact, even as an atheist, I never bought into the abiogenesis, one-celled organism. I was never convinced that life came from a one-celled organism. I didn't think it wasn't true, but I didn't think it was true. I was very much on the fence regarding that. The only adaptation is what I believed in at the time. Now, I would have thrown out abiogenesis to see what your defense would have been against that, but I'd never, in my heart, bought into that. Ever.
I can stand corrected. I'll admit that I was wrong. I thought that you had told me once that eventually, creatures would have turned into something else over a period of time. I might be wrong.
No, I probably did say that. I probably stressed that type of argument, but I never bought into the whole coming from a one-celled organism.
Well, even all those atheists, they'll say that has nothing to do with evolution anyway. They say abiogenesis.
That's a load of crap,
right,
though.
Exactly. You know that exactly.
Yeah, that's a load of crap. Because if you, that's a load of crap.
Fair enough. Well said.
That's exactly what micro, evolution is. If I said it right, I get them too mixed up all the time.
Remember, every time I'd bring up spontaneous generation, they'd flip like monkeys, go bananas, and say it's not spontaneous. Abiogenesis is not spontaneous. Okay, well, what is it? What kind of generation is this?
Right.
It was fruitless.
They want to try to say that they do not believe, evolution is not claiming that one species changes into another, and that's completely wrong. It might not be that way now, but the whole belief system is if you came from a one-celled, single-celled organism, and if they all came from a one single-celled organism, then there has to be change in species somewhere. You know, it makes no sense. This is something I actually talked to Ozzy about. I had asked him why Fiona and Atheist and stuff doesn't address that, because, and this, I was an atheist when I asked him this, and I said I could see it from the Christian's point of view. That's why I want to know why they don't ever address that. And they claim that, you know, their view of evolution doesn't teach that.
Well, then that just proves you were never fully on board with them. You just weren't. There's no way.
Well, not with the evolution aspect, no.
Right. And that's their bread and butter, though. I mean, that's, you know.
Yeah.
I assume that's what I get from them, you know.
Well, I mean, some people just argue the same thing over and over and over.
Oh, I know. Well, Seth was here the other night. Arcane and I were talking to Seth, and he said the exact, and we even told him, we know you're going to say that things staying the same is evolution. And then 5 minutes later, he says, yeah, cats only make cats. That's evolution. It's hilarious. It's just, there's no argument. There's no point in even discussing it, Eve.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kevin?
I looked into the evolution thing about 20 years ago, and I mean, I'm not up to date nowadays, but I really do think that there can be a lot better conversations on the subject. I'll say that much. I think right now it's pretty crappy.
Yeah, we left that debacle a long time ago. It was garbage. There are no debates. Bible, I think God says not to debate anyway. And actually, you know, with Elijah and Paul, they mock. They don't debate. They make fun of heathens. They make fun of demonically possessed people. A lot of Christians don't want to admit that. Everybody thinks a Christian is just supposed to stand there and say, oh, it's okay. You can do whatever you want. That's not the way it works.
I think there was a huge difference between the old covenant system and the new covenant system in regards to things like that. And also God and war. There's a, I don't know, there was a preparation or a preservation of the bloodline of Christ, and the need to show a separation from the world so that the Messiah would come through that bloodline. So I think things work just a little bit differently in that old covenant system than how we're supposed to deal with people now.
There's a different tool for every job. And I think Jesus Christ has different people doing many different things. Like Justin Bernard, you've met him, Teal. He's the polar opposite of me. And I even consider someone like him, as in a general aspect, much more productive. But then sometimes there is that event where there needs to be some red pills introduced. That just happens. It's just, there's different tools, you know?
Polar opposite of you? So he's a really nice guy and easy to get along with? Holy crap,
Exactly.
I wanna meet him.
Exactly. Yep. I'm not kidding, Kevin. Yes, he is absolutely the nicest guy you're ever going to meet. He's a Bible-believing Christian, and he is literally polar opposite. We are like, we're really good friends. We agree on almost everything, but the way he does things is I'm on 100, he's on 1. And I don't tell him what to do. He don't tell me what to do. That's how the body of Christ works. I don't have a problem with if any Christian does what they want to do and they're staying within the lines of what Jesus Christ says and preaches. There are no rules as long as you stay within those lines. It's Jesus Christ. He is himself. How did he behave? How did he treat people? What did he do with the Pharisees? I mean, we only have about a minute and a half of his life written in a book. We have 33 years. We don't know a lot about him, but I'm not speculating. There are certain aspects of Christianity where there are times to say no and to rebuke and things like that.
Yes, but I think rebuke can come in the form of love, not mockery.
Well, also think of it this way: when a father, especially, could you imagine Rand Campbell with his kids? He's, sometimes a father's love is going to be it's going to seem very bad to some people. Like some people think loving your children is child abuse nowadays if you punish your children. So there's just so many different ways of going about and disciplining people for their satanic actions, so to speak.
Right, but there is a difference between being stern and being abusive. There's a major difference there.
Absolutely agree, and I think that. As far as abusiveness, I wouldn't think that I abuse anybody. If somebody's going to tell me I abuse somebody, I'm sure somebody's out there to say that. But I mean, kind of just calling out the truth and rubbing it in people's faces, I can't say that's abuse. If the truth is the truth, I'm going to express that, and it's going to be the salt of the earth. That's what God says. We are to be the salt of the earth. Salt irritates and it heals.
Right. I'm not saying that you are. I'm just saying that. When you brought up the scriptures on them mocking the unbelievers, I don't know. It's just not a position I hold, so I'm kind of defending.
No, I don't blame you. I think he also mocked people that were Christians. Like, what are you doing? Are you going to worship Christ, or are you going to worship this? I mean, it was also the reprimandation of other Christians. So that's kind of what I'm going at. I'm not an expert. Paula, our knowledge scavenger, has been helping me with Bible study for about 8 months now. She's an absolute genius. Do you know that she decoded herself the entire Greek? New Testament. She has put some work into it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, she even showed me the part of the Bible where the woman was arguing with Jesus. I think this is one of the most phenomenal things for women. When this woman is arguing with Jesus, and Jesus finally gives in and says, okay, have it your way. There's no way he would have let a man do that. He gave in to women and said, fine, have it your way. And I think that's beautiful.
I just read a passage the other day, and I just cannot. Okay, that's getting off of what I'm going to say, though. I read a passage the other day, and it was, where Israel was wanting a king, and I believe it was Samuel was trying to, the high priest at the time was trying to convince them that was a bad idea, and that the Lord would not desire such a thing. And Samuel went to the Lord and talked to him about it, and the Lord was like, well, give them what they want, but tell them this, warn them this, and talked about how the king would rule over them and all this stuff. And today I posted on Facebook a whole bunch of scriptures on the rich. The rich seem different from the Old Covenant Testament to the New Covenant as well. The New Covenant seems to direct judgment more toward the rich than it did in the Old Covenant. So to me, that tells me that in this day and time, that tells me that in the Old Covenant system, riches and kings such as King David was used by the Lord. And that we're in a different time now because, that was for the preservation of the bloodline. We're in a different time now where the rich and kings will be wicked rulers over us, and judgment will fall upon them. And I don't see how other Christians do not understand that and do not use skepticism more with this world and the elite and mainstream media and things like that. I don't get how they're missing that connection.
Well, they come into the chat and they say, have you seen the new Google Earth map? That's what they say, Eve. They say, look at what man did. Look at this new Google Earth map. Forget the Bible. Forget actual creation. I have this belief right here. I have a ball on a computer. And that's the claims I'm literally reading out of these hangout chats from these so-called Christians. And, Rand says, what are you doing? You're trusting man? And it is so frustrating. They're leaders. These are the leaders. Yes, the ones that you're describing, these evil satanic leaders, that's where we're accepting. We're accepting this information from the satanic slave masters of the new age.
Yeah, we should be very, very skeptical of what's coming from the world, the knowledge of the world. The wisdom of men is foolishness in God's eyes.
Yeah, it's just insane. And here's the weird part, I'm obviously the exception, but I don't, this is God's deal. This is God's game. This is God's creation. He's ultimately deciding a lot of these things. I think he pretty much decides all of it. I'm not a Calvinist, but, he uses people that are deceived. You know, he uses these scoffers. I've always stated this. We need the scoffers, the atheists. But what I don't need is the fake Christians, though, man.
Yeah, I agree. You know, I shared that verse the other day with Rand because I love this verse where, you know, because you see mockery from the elite all the time. If you're looking into the things that I'm looking into, you see them just mocking the deception that they have over the masses. And it's just really comforting to come across that verse where it talks about you know, God looking down on them and mocking them and laughing at them, basically laughing at their plans because their plans are going to fail. It's really comforting knowing that scripture.
Amen. Looks like Rand's on break real quick. Let's do a station identification. It's 8 o'clock. West of the Rockies, south of the 33rd parallel. This is Flat Out Elected. Flat Earth, no curve, no ball. Special guest Eve Real, aka Teal Summers, with Arcane Logos and Rand Campbell. And the earth is flat, the Bible is true. And there is something bigger than flat earth. It's your creator. Your Lord and Savior Jesus Christ is absolutely the most important thing for you to ever realize. And the flat earth, as great as it is nothing compared to the creator.
Amen, brother. What up?
There's a guy in the chat that's wanting to join. It's Tom Tom. I know who he is. He probably wouldn't cause any trouble.
Yeah, Arcane, you want to give him the link?
Sure, I'll send him an invite.
Yeah, I'm on. That's my XO, Arcane. He makes those decisions.
And that's cool with me. I'd rather everybody be on board than, you know, just me.
Yeah, man, this is the most open place in the world, Eve. There's nothing else like this community with as far as this small group of people. And even if you're not a Christian, there's nothing more open than this group. And Rand Campbell has an open door policy. Doesn't matter if you're a Satanist. If you can come in and behave, you're going to be allowed to come in.
Hey, I'll be right back. I gotta get a drink real quick.
Yep.
Yeah, make it a stiffy. What's going on? Rand is back in the building. What's up, man?
Rand Campbell.
Yeah, man.
Yep. I mean, once you find out this flat earth, Arcane, everything just starts for us as well. And Eve just said it. She's comforted with understanding scripture, things like this. Once you take the Bible, you put it together, you're a flat earther and a Christian, everything just kind of gets a lot easier as far as spirituality. It's like, okay, you finally see the door. There's the door, and all we got to do is wait for Jesus Christ to open it whenever he comes back. It's there. Now we can see the door. I couldn't see the door until flat earth, and I did know Christ, not as well as I do now, and he walked with me for 8 years, and I had no idea how much I was missing. So you just never know. I mean, these Christians out there that think they're intelligent, you know, and there's a lot of them, they have no idea how little they know. They literally know almost nothing. They know very little. If you think you're on a ball, you don't even have a foundation of knowledge. So technically, all of your knowledge is worthless. You have nothing to put it on. You have no foundation. Literally, you don't even accept what's under your feet. It's literally like an untrustworthy position. Like, you're just not qualified. Now, did I know that 3 years ago? No, I had to put in the effort to figure this stuff out. It takes effort. You have to first want to know the truth. And obviously, secondly, you have to admit that you're wrong. And I mean, I'm not a magician. If I can admit I'm wrong, I'm sure everybody can. That's it.
Well, you at least go. Sorry, at least go into it with having the possibility that you could be wrong. At least investigate. You know what I'm saying? At least investigate it. Put the effort in and try the best you can not to be biased in your investigation.
Right, like something like the shape of the earth is something that a Christian really has no fear of, right? Why would we fear that? We're in the Lord. This is his creation, whatever it might be. If we're inside of a turtle, if God's in control, I don't care. I don't care how he made it. I just want to know the truth about it. But for somebody who, like you said, if you think you're on a ball, you have no foundation for knowledge. I mean, they have to start all over, man. And that's some scary stuff, to think that you have to start all over and what you think you know. That's why it's so easy for them to just push it in the back of their mind and pretend like they don't see the evidence, because it's scary, man. But if you're in Christ, you don't have to fear that, because you know the truth will set you free. These people need to be humble. They need to humble themselves for the truth. The truth isn't going to bend for them.
Well, and I think with the Christians who, you know, have been presented with some of the evidence and still in denial over it, I think that has a lot to do with the spherical model seems to be the foundation to their reality. And so it's hard for them to let go of that, because that makes which, like, I mean, I agree with you though, Arcane. Our trust and faith should be in Christ to where this doesn't bother us. But I think that they probably go through feelings of their whole reality being shaken. And that's why it's so hard for them to accept it. And of course, cognitive bias is a strong thing.
Right. Just like your boy Kent Hovind, he spent his whole career basically saying how the heliocentric model is evidence for God. You know what I mean? Like, so to go back on that and be like, oh, no, that's not evidence for God. This is actually evidence for God. It puts people in a tight box. I see that. Especially, you know, how many DVDs has that guy sold or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So it is what it is. It's kind of like Rob Skiba said, you know, he started off like Kent Hovind, basically teaching verbatim Kent Hovind's model and all that. So, but he had the humility to say, you know what, I was wrong. Here's a different perspective. I know I'll probably lose some of my constituents, but for the sake of truth, I'm willing to go there. You know, I don't want bandwagon fans anyway. Stay in the same spot y'all at. So,
Right. Well, I think a lot of things have probably how do I even put this? Christians are supposed to have a love of the truth, and so they're supposed to look at things. I don't know. It just seems like things have taken over that value. That things have taken over that love of truth, to where a lot of Christians will not even question the positions that they hold. Regarding any